Namaste and welcome. Well, as I mentioned a little bit ago to the local group here, I'm really happy to be back and engaged as been broadcasted some. I've been on the West Coast for a couple of weeks, and I got to behold the birthing of a granddaughter. It was amazing magic to watch. And then a couple of weeks, the first 2 weeks, and so I was basking in the mystery and how the love of this universe is kind of just flowing through this sentient, newly incarnated being. And I remember one morning, my son and daughter-in-law were kind of bleary-eyed, and I was like waxing poetic about the mystery of the universe. But you know what? They were nodding. They were ecstatic and exhausted both, I could tell. A little bit of jaundice, when's the milk coming, is it, the whole deal. And it was, just as so many know, a wonderful just dipping into the what matters. And in case I sound a bit airy-fairy about it all, I did take the 6 a.m. shift in terms of, So, but it was beautiful to witness the psychology and the biology and the spirit of this being belongs, and just this natural flow of just dedicating to what is part of us. And of course it was poignant to feel the juxtaposition of the news in our world, because here I was in this sense of all this belonging, and the news coming in fast and furious about the suffering of separating of families, and the suffering of yet another African-American youth, unarmed, killed in the streets of Pittsburgh, and then now just very recently, the suffering of targeting Muslim countries in terms of travel. So just feeling this contrast. And one person was expressing to me his revulsion, aiming it towards a well-known political figure. And I was struck, and I've been struck a number of times by this, about how misguided the anger was, and how directing towards any individual feels so misguided to me. It's like, it feels like kind of pointing at a rash when there's a dis-ease through the whole body. I don't know, that's just kind of one way that it comes to me, that, what is the real disease that's going on? And I'll just say to you that I had a totally different talk planned for tonight. And then this morning I was walking and taking in the world in many ways, and just started weeping and realized I couldn't give the talk I had planned. So what you're getting, I just kind of, this is where I am right now, just to talk about this. The disease that's in the whole body, this whole question, what drives us to cruelty? It's like I couldn't not talk about the heartbreak over cruelty and so on. And so the what drives us, what makes it even possible to be cruel, is this very deep, primitive conditioning of othering to make others unreal, that they're not real humans. I mean, we can't hurt someone if they feel real, if they feel like I feel, then they're like my granddaughter. It's like, of course you belong to me. But we can, if we're dissociated and those others aren't really humans. Does that make sense? It's the unreal other. So that's what lets, I just read Algeria forcing tens of thousands of people into the desert, migrants. That's what lets the Buddhist majority genocide against the Rohingya. It's that unreal other. They're not real humans. And that's what's behind building the walls on all the levels that I know you understand. So So I want to honor that there's many different feelings, and I'm not assuming anybody feels a certain way, but we can reflect together. And I'd like to anchor this very much in our own lives. Like, how is that dis-ease in me? How do I have a habit of making somebody unreal and then acting in a way that could be hurtful? Because it's not until we bring it to that level that we actually can be part of a true transformation. And we need to act. We need to organize. We need to vote, and we need to engage. And if we don't look deeply into how we're creating unreal others, including my friend who was speaking with revulsion, that's creating an unreal other. We're not going to be able to actually transform and heal the disease. So one of the stories I thought maybe I'd start with that has always touched me so much is of somebody I admire very much, is a longtime meditator and a longtime prisoner, Jarvis Masters, and some of you have heard of him. He was in the exercise yard at San Quentin, as the story goes, and a big young inmate raised a rock, and he was going to throw it at a pigeon. Now, usually when you're in the yard, the rule of thumb is mind your own business. People get into fights very, very quickly. But Jarvis immediately raised his arms to stop the guy, and super antagonized. The young man said, "What are you doing? And so everybody's tensing up because this is how fights start. But here's what Jarvis said. He said, this is real spontaneous. He said, "That bird has my wings. That bird has my wings." And immediately the tension dissipated. The guy put down his rock, kind of shaking his head, But it's interesting, for days after, inmates would come up to Jarvis kind of individually and say, "So what do you mean by that, Jarvis? That bird has my wings." And in a way, as you listen, something in you knows what that means, right? It's like when we pay close attention to another person, like really attend, or when we pay close attention to our dog, or to our favorite plant, or to any part of this living world, that life form becomes a part of us. It starts belonging. It matters to us. We start attuning to how we do share wings. We all have the same longing to live fully. We have a longing to connect, and we have a longing to be free. It might be buried by free, but we have those longings. But if we're preoccupied, if we're off in our mental worry, plan, obsess, if we're judging and throwing stones, we're cut off from that heart wisdom. That's the disease. We get cut off from that knowing. We forget, that bird has my wings.